Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of CHAMPS eSports, Atari 2600 edition. This is Denver, and today we are going to play, or I should say I am going to be playing, you're going to be watching, the classic Activision game, Laser Blast. Before I get too heavy into gameplay and get all kinds of distracted, let me give a big thanks and a shout out to all of our sponsors. Up first is the awesome, wonderful, huge supporter of all things state champs, and that is Lawrence Technological University, located in Southfield, Michigan. Go to their website, ltu.edu, for more information, including finding out about their game arts and game design programs, which are really, really amazing. We also have to thank Army Michigan for being one of our great sponsors. They've been on board with us for going on almost 6 months now, and their U.S. Army Twitch channel is really amazing, so go check that out, find out more about Army Michigan. And last and certainly not least is Hungry Howie's Pizza. They are one of the essential services still running right now in our quarantine era that we're in, so visit their website or app and get yourself some great pizza. They are famous for flavor, after all. They are a local Michigan company here that invented flavored crust. Alright, now on to the gameplay. As you can see, I'm a flying saucer taking out what appear to be tanks on the ground. This is, I always think of Laser Blast as a reverse Space Invaders. I'm sure that's how the game was pitched, because instead of being stuck on the ground and fighting the spaceships that are kind of marching down on you, you are flying through the sky, taking out the tanks. You are the flying saucer. Now, as you can see, I've been playing mostly with a straight down firing style. For me, that has always worked best. And if you can find the rhythm and take them out 1, 2, 3, it almost makes the game, I want to say, too easy. Now, as you can see, you can also fire to the side, and that's a little bit more difficult, at least for me anyway, and it almost seems unnecessary, because I found that just the straight down, picking them off 1, 2, 3 approach works very well. You can also see just past the 1,000 point mark, and so that gives you a free guy or a free life. When I was growing up, we used the term free guy, but I know bonus life, free life, depending probably on what part of the country you're from, you have your own little lingo and terminology. And as you can see, if you do get shot down, you can kind of kamikaze yourself into one of the tanks and take them out, so that at least your ship's death is not in vain. Now, this is actually my second time. I'm gonna kind of telling on myself here. This is my second time streaming this game tonight. The first time, the graphics did not show up on the stream. The level or the board showed up, but you could not see the tanks, the flying saucers, or my laser blast. So this is take two. So it's not going to be quite as spontaneous and perhaps fun as the original version, but hopefully I'll treat this as a more of the final performance, and that was the dress rehearsal, so I'll be able to get some of the kinks out. And in that first stream, I was also struggling a little bit with finding my rhythm and the pattern of the game. And so I don't think that's going to be the case here. I was able to rack up a pretty high score. I think I was in around the 50,000 range, although no one will ever know, because I'm going to be deleting that stream right off the face of the internet, if the internet has a face. Now, if you can tell, and I don't know if I've gotten to that point yet, I think I'm there now, that at the next 1,000 point marker, I am not going to advance, or at least get another free guy, because you only are allowed a certain number of ships. Yeah, so I just went to 19,000 and did not get another free guy or another flying saucer to my fleet of vessels. Now you may ask, of all the Atari 2600 games out there, why did I want to play Laser Blast? Well, a couple of reasons. One is I love Activision games. And if you've watched the Pitfall stream or episode that I did a while back, I talked about how Activision was the first third-party game to produce Atari 2600 games outside of Atari themselves. As a matter of fact, Activision was founded by several Atari employees who wanted to branch off and kind of start a more designer, programmer centric company. Don't forget, Atari, while it might have had small origins, was quickly sold to Warner Brothers. I think the selling price was $28 million. We talked a little bit about that in our breakout episode when I did a little deep dive into Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, or the co-founder. And so, you know, obviously when a huge company like Warner Brothers buys you up, it becomes very corporate, and the emphasis is not on the creative types, not on the designers and the programmers. And that happens in a lot of industries. Comic book companies, for example, same thing happened. Atari, Marvel had several employees that branched off and started their own companies. Creator-owned, I believe, is the term. Todd McFarlane, for example, started up his own company to much success with his Spawn comic books, and I think even more success with the Walking Dead books. He didn't create them, but his company published them. And the designer of this game is David Crane, and you might recognize that name if you watched our Pitfall episode. He created Pitfall, which is one of the biggest selling Atari 2600 games of all time. Now, a year before Pitfall, he had a quite prolific year in 1981. He created the game I'm playing now, Laser Blast, and Freeway, and Kaboom. Although I guess technically he didn't create Kaboom. that was apparently based off of another game, and so it was a bit of a illegal port, a bootleg port, if you will. But what's interesting is that Laser Blast, Freeway, and Kaboom. Oh, and I think Grand Prix as well. He created in '81. But those 3 games are all in the Million Seller Club. So if you look at the top 20 list of all-time biggest Atari 2600 games, about half, or I would say over half, are all in that roughly million cartridge sold category. So I don't know if they're all exactly 1 million or 1.1, or you know how close they are together. But for one man to be essentially responsible for 4 of the top 20 Atari 2600 games, I really wanted to just kind of take this episode to give David Crane his due. He actually started in Atari, or at Atari, in the late 70s, out of college, worked for Atari for a few years. That's when he met up with the other Atari employees who wanted to branch off and start Activision. So it was at Activision that he created all of the games that I mentioned, including Pitfall, to much success and fanfare. And yes, Activision was the first third-party game designer for Atari 2600, and in my mind, probably the best game designer, even better than Atari, because Atari really just ported over their arcade games, which from a business model makes perfect sense. You've got these properties that are very successful and popular that people already know, so why not bring them home? It's kind of like when a movie is successful and they make a TV version out of it. You know, it's a little bit more low budget, not quite as good, but it gets you close enough to still be successful and popular. Whereas Activision, they were the opposite of Atari. They really did not, probably because they didn't have the money to license the popular arcade games at the time, but they came up with all, I take that back, maybe not all original games, but mostly original games. Their most successful games were certainly all original to the Atari 2600. Now, a notable exception to the rule of being original properties was a game that David Crane also worked on after Pitfall, of course, was a Ghostbusters adaptation. Now, it's not a great game as far as the gameplay goes, because I do remember playing that game as a child, and I've played it fairly recently. The music, the graphics for an Atari 2600 game were all very enjoyable, and so the game is good maybe from a technical standpoint, but from a gameplay point of view, it's just not very fun to play. And David Crane did wind up leaving Activision, I believe in the mid-'80s. They had conflicts with the CEO of the company, which you think if you were one of the founders would not be an issue, but hey, video games at the time were big business. Atari was in fact one of the fastest growing businesses in the world, made over $1 billion, I believe, in 1 year alone. So when that kind of money is involved, it is not easy to keep things together. egos and bank accounts often get in the way. I'd love to know the behind the scenes story. Now, as you can see, I'm kind of at this point kind of going through the motions here. Once you've found the pattern and the timing with a lot of these early Atari games, the games aren't often that challenging. And I don't know if there's a kill screen with Laser Blast. I know a lot of games were programmed to just keep repeating over and over again so that there was no end screen or kill screen, as it was called. I kind of challenged myself a little bit by trying to work on my side shooting to see if that is any better. Probably not as strong as just that straight down method. Ooh, kamikaze time. Oh, I missed the kamikaze. Oh, can you believe that? Well, this is kind of turning out to be like the asteroids episode that I did, where essentially the entire stream or show was just one long game. Most of the time, I'm getting killed and restarting games over and over many times throughout the stream. Asteroids was the only game that lasted the whole stream, or the only stream that lasted for one game, I should say. And this is kind of looking like it's going to be the same thing. I don't know if there's if I'm able to flip the score. We've got 5 digits there, and if I can get to 6 figures, I will find out if I can flip it. If you're not familiar with the term flipping the score, it's essentially when you run out of numbers and they start you back at 0. So to keep track of your score, you just have to remember how many times you flipped it. With asteroids, I think I flipped it 3 or 4 times. Now, asteroids is also a lot higher scoring game, just because there are so many asteroids that you can shoot. With these 3 tanks per screen, it doesn't give you a lot of opportunities for scoring. I'll definitely, in future episodes, play the other David Crane created games, just because, like I said, for my money, he's the best Atari 2600 game designer ever. So I want to give him his proper due. And Activision, of course, like I mentioned, is my favorite company, and they have gone on to huge success. One of the few companies from that era that is not only still around, but bigger than ever. So kudos to them. Somebody did something right over there. And while I'm rather mindlessly taking out these tanks, let me just give a little plug for our other State Champs eSports streams. Joel Graves, who is our assistant eSports manager, is on the Lawrence Tech club team, and they have made it to the GG League Michigan finals, and they will be competing Wednesday night against Davenport. So go ahead and make sure to check out that stream. And we also have an in-house Rocket League expert. He goes by the name of State Champs Kev, and he is going to be streaming some Rocket League action. So if you're into the more contemporary eSports games, I'm kind of the old dog on the team, who you can't just seem to teach new tricks. So I'm playing the games I grew up with, and of course I'll probably branch off to some of the other gaming systems, Super Nintendo, Sega, and of course the coin-op games, the arcades. That's where I first fell in love with video games. Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Tron was a favorite at the arcade. Alright, so let's see. I'd love to get to the 100,000 mark just to see if I can flip the game. Ooh, there, I did a little side shot there. Are you impressed? The way I look at it is, you can kill me all you want. I can just get another free guy. Let's see. What's funny is when the tanks shoot straight up, it almost looks like the old Atari joystick. I mentioned playing some of the other David Crane Activision games, but if there are any games that you're interested in seeing me play, please leave the request in the comments, and I'll make sure to accommodate. I've kind of run through like all my must-have or must-play games, so at this point I'm just kind of riffing on different topics. In previous streams I played Air Raid, which is infamous for being the highest selling video game cartridge of all time. It went for $33,000 on auction because it was a very limited number of cartridges that were ever produced, and the cartridges themselves are very unique, kind of one of a kind. They're blue with a T-shaped handle, and interestingly, the company that produced the game only ever produced one game. That was it. Air Raid and nothing else. And I've talked about River Raid, which besides the name really has nothing to do with Air Raid, but it was designed by one of the very first female game designer / programmers. So that was a very interesting perspective. I mean, the game is very fun to play, much more challenging than this game, and it is another Activision game as well. But it came after this, when I think they had perfected the graphics and the gameplay a little bit more. Alright, 75,000. I will see if I can get to 100. I'll call it quits either after 100 or if I die, but I can't imagine I would lose all ships here. I'm gonna just practice on my side shooting a little bit there, just to make it a little bit more challenging. Ooh, kamikaze time, baby. There we go. There, gotcha. Side shot. Now the reason the side shot is a lot harder, I found, is that you're leaving your underside exposed. So I don't recommend the side shot unless you are like myself, just trying to make it a little bit more challenging for you. I know there are some games that actually allow you to set a difficulty level. Space Invaders, for example, is one of the first games that I remember that you could change the size of your ship. So obviously the bigger you made your ship, the more of a target you were and the more difficult the game was. I don't think Laser Blast has a difficulty setting, at least not one that I'm aware of. I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me, which is what happened when I played Frogger. I was actually playing not the original port of Frogger. It was a slightly later port, still for the Atari 2600, but by a different company. I think I referenced the Parker Brother version as being the game that I was playing, but it was really the Supercade version. I didn't even know, to be honest, that there were multiple versions. So I do appreciate the comment, and was able to clarify that in the notes for the episode. And that's really the main reason that I wanted to do this stream, is because when I was growing up, I was just a dopey kid. You know, I was 7, 8, 9 years old playing these games, and you know, the different variations and the companies that made them and the people behind the scenes. I knew nothing about that. I could care less. So for me, doing these streams, it kind of gives me a chance to do a little research and kind of relive the past. So it's not just a nostalgia trip, but it's also a little bit of a classic Atari education for me. And, you know, what the hell, we're stuck inside for the Corona quarantine, so what other better way to pass the hours than to reacquaint myself with some of my all-time favorite childhood games. Alright, closing in on 100,000 here, people. I will be curious to see if I can flip the score. And while we build our way up to 100,000, let me once again thank our sponsors. Good old LTU, Lawrence Tech. You can visit their website, ltu.edu. Then, of course, Army, Michigan. And our friends over at Hungry Howie's Pizza. They've always have all kinds of specials and deals going on, so go to the website or download the app and get yourself some delicious food. And let me also give you a little plug for our other State Champs properties. Besides State Champs eSports, there's also State Champs RoboZone, which is all about competitive robotics, mostly high school competitive robotics, but we cover middle school, elementary, even some college robotics. And it's not all about competition. It's STEM-based fun stuff, so there is a little bit of overlap between esports and robotics, because after all, they use gaming controllers, Xbox and PlayStation controllers to do their remote controlled robots. And there is also a lot of programming in the robots, because they're oftentimes are autonomous portions of the games. So yeah, give our State Champs RoboZone shows and videos a look. And then, of course, it all started with the State Champs High School Sports Show, which covers all your traditional sports like football and basketball and hockey and baseball. Essentially, if it's played at a high school, be it boys, girls, cross country, cheerleading, whatever it is, if you can compete against another team, we will cover it. Now things have been a little bit difficult for both of our high school sports and robotics shows because of the quarantine. There's really no competitions going on. eSports is really only the only competition going right now. So it's the eSports time to shine. Alright, I am so close to 100,000. Let's see, the anticipation is... Well, it's not killing me, but it's... At least it's getting me through this rather monotonous gameplay here. I could see why it is not one of the all-time best-selling. It didn't, like, crack the top 6 or 7. It is a fun game. It does kind of follow that Bushnell law of easy to play, sort of difficult to master. Only took me about a half an hour on the previous stream. Oh, okay, it does go to 100,000. We will not have to flip the score. And I just don't think I have it in me to try to make it all the way to 1 million here to see if it'll flip at that level. Especially considering, like I said, this is my second go around here, and I've been kind of babysitting the stream a little bit closer to make sure that everything is looking good. I just can't help myself but to get free guys. Alright, well, I think I am going to just ride this game out, and I want to thank you all for watching. This has been Denver from State Champs eSports, Atari 2600 edition. You've been watching Laser Blast from Activision, and remember to support all of our great sponsors, Lawrence Tech, Army Michigan, and Hungry Howie's. And until next time, thanks for watching, and don't forget to game on.